Hey everyone, welcome to your first Julius Caesar video lesson. Today we're going to be starting off by starting Act 3. So to quickly recap where we left off before we left school, at the end of Act 2, we basically saw that the conspirators were ready to go and act out their plan. If you recall, the last thing that had happened was all the conspirators went to Caesar's house. And at Caesar's house, they convinced him to go to the Capitol, even though his wife Calpurnia had said, I'm having these bad dreams. I don't want you to go to the Capitol. But the conspirators, specifically Decius, were able to convince Caesar that he actually should go to the Capitol. So they all showed up at his house to get him at 8 o'clock in the morning. And he was very excited to see them, and they all left to go to the Capitol. And then at the very end of Act 2, we saw that Portia, Brutus's wife, was really nervous about what was going to happen, and she sent Brutus's servant Lucius to the Capitol to go and see him. So today we're going to start reading. If you have your book, we are on page 35. If for some reason you don't have your book, I got a couple of messages that people had left their books at school. I am going to post a PDF version of the play that you can follow along with. It's going to be the same one that you're seeing right now on your screen. That is what I'm going to be using. So since I don't have the book on the screen, I'm going to use this PDF version, and I'll just let you know what page number we are on. If you're following along in your book, which you should be following along, highlighting what I tell you to highlight, annotating, etc., then you just will follow along in your book and you can see on the screen exactly where we're at. So hopefully that makes sense. Let me know if you have any questions. All right, so let's get into Act 3, Scene 1. As you can see at the top of page 35, we are in Rome before the Capitol. The Senate is sitting above. So basically what that means is that they're in the Senate House. And you'll notice the stage directions say a crowd of people, among them Artemidorus. Remember, he's the guy who has the letter. If he can deliver the letter to Caesar, he would be warning him of what's going to happen. The soothsayer, the one who had said, "Beware the Ides of March." And then you're going to hear a flourish. That just means that there's going to be sort of shouting. And then you're going to see enter Caesar, Brutus, Cassius, Casca, Decius, Metellus, Trebonius, Cinna, Antony, Lepidus, Populus, Publius, and others. What that basically means is that everybody is here today to meet Caesar in the Capitol. Remember, the senators are supposed to be giving him a crown, and they are here to celebrate him. So as we open the scene, the first thing you guys want to look for on page 35 is that people are trying to give Caesar what we call suits. That means that they are trying to give Caesar their sort of like petitions or their requests, and they want him to read them. So you're going to see the soothsayer and Artemidorus sort of go up to Caesar and try to give him their letters. And that is, you'll see whether or not Caesar listens to them, but you guys kind of know what has happened in the past. Next, on page 36, we are going to see that a man named Metellus, he's part of the conspiracy, is going to present his suit or his request to Caesar. So as we're on page 36, try to see if you can think about what Metellus is asking Caesar to do, and why that would be something he would want. And then we're going to finish up this first part on page 37. Think about how Caesar responds to Metellus request. Think about what that says about him. Try to hone in on some of the words that Caesar says in his response. And remember, Caesar talks about himself in third person, so that should help you. And then we will pause the recording on page 38 basically right before Trebonius comes back in. So that's what we're going to read together for this first part of Act 3, Scene 1, and something really major is about to happen. So pay attention to those stage directions so you can see what the characters are doing, because there's quite a bit of action in this scene. So I'm going to play the recording for you and follow along with me. Again, we're starting on page 35.
Caesar! The Ides of March are come. Aye, Caesar, but not gone. Hail, Caesar. Read the schedule. Trebonius not designed to read at your best leisure this humble suit. Oh, Caesar, read mine first. For mine's a suit that touches Caesar neareth. Read it, great Caesar.
What touches us ourselves shall be last, sir.
Delay not, Caesar. Read it instantly.
What, is the fellow mad? Give peace.
I urge you your petitions in the street. Come to the Capitol.
I wish your enterprise today may thrive.
What enterprise, Papilius?
Very well.
What said Papilius Lena? We wish today our enterprise might thrive. I fear our purpose is discovered. Look how he makes to Caesar. Mark him. Casca, be sudden, for we fear prevention. Brutus, what shall be done? If this be known, Cassius or Caesar never shall turn back, for I will slay myself.
Cassius, be constant. Papilius Lena speaks not of our purposes, for look, he smiles, and Caesar doth not change.
Trebonius knows his time. For look you, Brutus, he draws Mark Antony out of the way.
Where is Metellus Simba? Let him go and presently prefer his suit to Caesar.
He is addressed. Press near and second him.
Casca, you are the first to raise your hand.
Aye.
Are we all ready? What is now amiss that Caesar and his Senate must redress?
Most high, most mighty, and most puissant Caesar, Metellus Simba throws before thy seat an humble heart.
I must prevent these, Simba! These couchings and these lowly courtesies might fire the blood of ordinary men and turn preordinance and first decree into the lane of children. Be not fond to think that Caesar bears such rebel blood that will be thawed from the true quality with that which melteth fools. I mean sweet words, low crooked curtsies, and base spaniel fawning. Thy brother by decree is banished. If thou dost bend and pray and fawn for him, I spurn thee like a cur out of my way. No, Caesar doth not wrong, nor without cause will he be satisfied.
Is there no voice more worthy than my own, to sound more sweetly in great Caesar's ear for the repealing of my banished brother?
I kiss thy hand, but not in flattery, Caesar, desiring thee that Publius Simba may have an immediate freedom of repeal.
What, Brutus?
Pardon, Caesar, Caesar, pardon. As low as to thy foot doth Cassius fall, to beg enfranchisement for Publius Simba.
I could be well moved if I were as you. If I could pray to move, prayers would move me. But I am constant as the northern star, of whose true fixed and resting quality there is no fellow in the firmament. The skies are painted with unnumbered sparks, they are all fire, and every one doth shine. But there's but one in all doth hold his place. So in the world 'tis furnished well with men, and men are flesh and blood and apprehensive. Yet in the number I do know but one that unassailable holds on his rank unshaked of motion. And that I am he, let me a little show it even in this, that I was constant Simba should be banished, and constant to remain to keep him so.
Oh, Caesar.
Hence, wilt thou lift up Olympus?
Great Caesar.
Doth not Brutus bootless kneel?
Weak hands for me.
And to Brutus. Then fall Caesar. liberty, freedom. Tyranny is dead. Run hence, proclaim, cry it about the streets.
Come to the common pulpits and cry out, liberty, freedom, and enfranchisement. People and senators, be not affrighted. Fly not, stand still. Ambition's debt is paid.
Go to the pulpit, Brutus.
And Cassius too. Where's Publius?
Here, quite confounded with this mutiny. Stand fast together, lest some friend of Caesar should
Talk not of standing. Publius, good cheer. There is no harm intended to your person or to no Roman else. So tell them, Publius. And leave us, Publius, lest that the people rushing on us should do your age some mischief. Do so, and let no man abide this deed, but we the doers.
All right, craziness, right? So in case you missed it, let's scroll back. Caesar has been stabbed and he has died, which is, exactly what the conspirators told us they were going to do. They told us they were going to kill him. And I want to get into Caesar's final words before he dies. But let's go ahead and go back to where we started with the beginning of the scene. So you'll notice in the first part of the scene right here where Caesar says the Ides of March are gone. The Ides of March are come, and the soothsayer says, I, Caesar, but not done. So you'll notice here that the soothsayer and Artemidorus try very hard to get Caesar to read their letter. When you see here where it says read this schedule, that is the letter that he's asking him to read. And when they're talking about here about reading this humble suit and this humble suit, again, those are asking him to read the letters. So he wants them right here at the bottom to go to the Capitol. Basically, Caesar is annoyed that they're coming to talk to him in the middle of the street. And so his response is like, you need to come to the Capitol. You need to come there to speak with me. Okay, so moving on. We will go down to the next part. So at the bottom of page 35, you will notice that Publius comes up to Cassius and says, I wish today your enterprise may thrive. So on my screen, that's right here, but in your book, that is on the bottom of page 35. The reason why this is important is because they are worried that Publius Lena knows what's going on. He says to Cassius, I wish today your enterprise may thrive. That means that I hope what you're going to do today will be successful. So that's why right here, Cassius says, I fear our purpose is discovered, because he's afraid that Publius Lena knows, what is going to happen today. And that he's going to say something about it. But luckily, we see, if you flip to the top of page 36, that this worry continues. Cassius, remember, says, Casca be sudden, for we fear prevention. Brutus, what shall be done? If this should be known, Cassius or Caesar shall never turn back, for I will slay myself. So here we see Cassius referring back to that sort of promise that he made back in Act 1, where he said that if Caesar becomes king, he will kill himself. We know that Trebonius doesn't Publius Lena doesn't tell him, and he doesn't do anything because right here it says he's smiling, Caesar doesn't suspect anything, and then as we can see, Trebonius draws Mark Antony out of the way. So remember, they're not going to kill Mark Antony, so that's the point of drawing him out of the way, to make sure that Mark Antony is not in the way when the conspirators actually go to kill Caesar. All right, so after they draw Mark Antony out of the way, let's see. So if we go down to, we go down a little bit. So if you're in your book, I'm on the middle of page 36, where Decius says, "Where is Metellus Cimber? Let him go and presently prefer his suit to Caesar." So now let's talk about the suit or the request that Metellus Cimber gives to Caesar. In your book, if you're on page 36, you can see here where my mouse is. Oh, let me get it up there, right here, where he says, "Most high, most mighty, and most puissant Caesar, Metellus Cimber throws before thy seat." So Metellus Cimber is basically there because he wants to kind of beg something of Caesar. So the question is, what is he asking Caesar? That's what we need to see. So if we go down on your book, this is the bottom of page 36, okay? He basically is going to talk with Caesar about what happened. So if you notice here, bottom of page 36, Caesar is talking, right? And he says, "Be not fond to think that Caesar bears such rebel blood that will be thawed from the true quality with that which melteth fools. I mean, sweet words, low crooked courtesies." So he's basically talking about the fact that the decision that he made is not going to be affected by anyone. What is the decision? Right here, guys. This is something to make sure that you highlight. "Thy brother by decree is banished." So if you remember from reading Romeo and Juliet last year, banished or banished in our language would basically mean you have to leave the city and you can't come back. So at this point, Metellus Cimber, his brother, a man named Publius Cimber, has been banished. So Metellus is there to beg Caesar to reverse that decision. So we see at the bottom of page 36, top of page 37, Metellus says, "Is there no voice more worthy than mine own to sound more sweetly in great Caesar's ear for the repealing of my banished brother?" So Metellus is basically coming to him as a brother, begging him to let his brother, to let his brother come back into the city, to undo the banishment, okay? And we see here that Brutus, okay, also, and this is at the top of page 37, Brutus said he kisses Caesar's hand, right? He's begging Caesar to allow Publius Cimber, Metellus Cimber's brother, to be free, okay? So when Caesar hears this, he's kind of just like, seriously, and then we have Cassius here also begging, he gets down on in front of the feet of Caesar and begs. Caesar is not happy. On page 37, he says, "If I could be well moved, if I were as you, if I could pray to move, prayers would move me." But here's the key thing that he says, "But I am constant as the northern star, of whose true fixed and resting quality there is no fellow in the firmament." If you guys think about the northern star, right, that's what explorers used to use to find their way, right? Because the northern star is the brightest one in the sky, obviously besides the sun, but we're thinking about at night, right? The northern star is the brightest star in the sky, and it doesn't move, and that's how you can find true north. So Caesar is making a metaphor, a comparison. Actually, it's technically a simile because there's the word as, right? I am constant as the northern star, so he is not moving, right? And he says, if I could pray to move, prayers would move me. Basically, I'm not reversing my decision. And we see here that he really builds himself up when he says that. He basically makes this grand comparison. And then if you go here to where he finishes his little speech, he says, "I do know but one that unassailable holds on his rank, unshaked of motion, and that I am he." So basically, like, I only know of one man who never changes his mind, and that's me. So basically, Caesar refuses to even consider, lifting the banishment on Publius Cimber, Metellus Cimber's brother. In any case, presenting this request to Caesar, I mean, yes, it's like a real request, but it also, the point of it was for them to have an excuse to get close to Caesar. Because right now, since they requested it, they're all standing next to him because they were begging him to let Publius Cimber go. So you'll notice that that's where basically now Casca, he was the one who they said, okay, you're going to be the first one. Casca, right here, sorry, my highlighting is not working, but Casca basically strikes Caesar first. In your book, it says Casca first, then the other conspirators, and Marcus Brutus stab Caesar, and he dies. Now, we have to focus really quickly on Caesar's last words, where he says, "Et tu, Brute, then fall Caesar." These lines are some of the most, this line, "Et tu, Brute," is probably the most famous line in all of the play because it is Caesar's sort of shock and sadness at Brutus being part of this conspiracy. So a good translation for "Et tu, Brute" would be "an even you, Brutus." So this has a double meaning. On the one hand, Caesar's saying, oh, even you, Brutus, stabbed me, then I die. Like, you physically stabbed me, I'm dead. But if we think a little bit deeper about it, right, we remember that Brutus was Caesar's friend. And to our knowledge, they loved each other as friends. So when Caesar says, "Et tu, Brute," or even you, Brutus, he's also talking about being stabbed emotionally in the heart by knowing that his best friend, well, one of his best friends, has betrayed him. So if even you, Brutus, are against me, then I fall, then I am, gone. So he is physically dying, but he's also talking about sort of an emotional response to what Brutus did to him. Now, you'll notice after Caesar dies, the conspirators at the bottom of page 37, top of page 38, start shouting. They shout, "Liberty, freedom, tyranny is dead," and they're running through the streets. So this is their way of sort of celebrating what has just happened. This is an important line right here. This is at the top of page 38 in your book. But when the people see that Caesar has been stabbed, they're afraid, or in the book it says affrighted. You'll notice here that Brutus says to the people, "People and senators, be not affrighted, fly not, so don't run away, stand still, ambition's debt is paid." What that basically means is that they're done. They're not going to go around killing a bunch of other people. Ambition's debt, what they felt like they needed to do, has been done. So that's important because now, that Caesar's dead, Brutus is the one that is sort of the leader, even though this whole thing, as we know, was Cassius's idea. Brutus is the leader. So it's important here that he says, that ambition's debt has been paid. So the other people around him sort of calm down a little bit. All right. So we see that everybody is really confused at this point. Everybody's sort of running around and everybody leaves. But basically, if we look here where we just paused in the middle of page 38, everybody leaves, but the Trebonius comes in, okay, to report on what just happened. So in the next part of what we're going to read, the conspirators are going to discuss, where is Mark Antony, okay? Where did he go? And then the men are going to do something. And I want you to pay attention to what they do because it's something that in Act 2 was predicted would happen. So as soon as you see it, I want you to highlight it in your book or underline it with your pen, and then we'll talk about it in a second when we get there. So let's continue reading. We're in the middle of page 38 where it says, "Re-enter Trebonius."
Where is Antony?
Fled to his house amazed. Men, wives, and children stare, cry out, and run, as it were doomsday.
Fates, we will know your pleasures. That we shall die, we know. 'Tis but the time and drawing days out that men stand upon.
Why, he that cuts off 20 years of life cuts off so many years of fearing death.
Grant that, and then is death a benefit? So are we Caesar's friends that have abridged his time of fearing death. Stoop, Romans. Stoop. And let us bathe our hands in Caesar's blood up to the elbows and besmear our swords. Then walk we forth, even to the marketplace, and waving our red weapons o'er our heads, let's all cry peace, freedom, and liberty. Stoop then and wash. How many ages hence shall this our lofty scene be acted over in states unborn and accents yet unknown? How many times shall Caesar bleed in sport, that now on Pompey's bases lies along no worthier than the dust? So oft as that shall be, so often shall the not of us be called the men that gave their country liberty. What? Shall we forth? Aye, every man away. Brutus shall lead, and we will grace his heels with the most boldest and best hearts of Rome.
All right, did you find it? Did you find the part that was predicted from Act 2? If you didn't, it is on the bottom of page 38, okay? So as the conspirators are all there, Brutus tells them to, right here, he says, grant that, and on bottom of page 38, grant that, and then death is a benefit. So we are Caesar's friends that have abridged his time of fearing death. Stoop, Romans, stoop, and let us bathe our hands in Caesar's blood up to the elbows and besmear our swords. Then walk we forth even to the marketplace, and waving our red weapons o'er our heads, let's all cry peace, freedom, and liberty. Guys, this is what Calpurnia had dreamed about. Remember, Calpurnia, Caesar's wife, had a dream that Caesar's statue had 100 spouts, and it was bleeding. Instead of water, it was blood, and that the lusty Romans were bathing in it. Here they are, guys. These are the lusty Romans, and they are stooping down and bathing their hands in Caesar's blood up to their elbows, okay? Bathing their hands, and then they're taking that blood and smearing it over their swords and running in the marketplace crying peace, freedom, and liberty. Why are they doing this? Because they don't want what they did to be seen as something to be ashamed of. They want everybody to know what they've done, because in their mind, they are doing what is best for Rome. So the idea is that we bathe in Caesar's blood, we run through the streets crying peace, freedom, and liberty, and the people will see that what we did was something good because we're not ashamed of it. Then we can see here at the bottom of page 38 that Cassius agrees. He says, stoop then and wash, and they all go in and wash in the blood. Okay, so at the top of page 39, okay, it says, Cassius says, so oft that shall be, so often shall the not of us be called the men that gave their country liberty. So again, this is what they want. They want to be seen as the men that gave their country liberty or freedom. And that's how they see themselves. Are they misguided? That's for you to decide, but that's what they think. All right, next part of the scene. We are in the middle of page 39, or sort of to the top of page 39, where it says, enter a servant. So now a servant is going to come in. He is a friend or a servant of Mark Antony. And keep in mind, when Caesar was stabbed, Mark Antony ran away, fled to his house. Okay, that was back on page 38. If you look right under where it says re-enter Trebonius, Cassius says, where is Antony? And Trebonius says, fled to his house amazed. Men and women and children stare, cry out, and run as if it were doomsday. I'll go back up there just so you guys can see what I'm talking about, because that's kind of important. Again, this is the middle of page 38. Middle of page 38, where he says, re-enter Trebonius. Yes, right here. Where is Antony? Of course. Where is Antony? Fled to his house amazed. Men, women, and children stare, cry out, and run as if it was doomsday. That would be a good thing to highlight. That is the initial reaction to what the conspirators have done. People are afraid. So Antony has run away. Remember, he wasn't part of the plan. He has no idea what's going on. And the men and women and all the people out in the street are crying as if it's doomsday. They're a mess, okay? So keep that in mind. So when we go back to page 39 and we see that a servant is going to enter, Antony is worried, right? He's like, I can't go talk to Brutus and Cassius. I don't know if they're going to kill me or not. So he sends his servant to talk to Brutus and Cassius. So on page 39, we're going to see the servant come. He's basically going to deliver the message from Antony. Is it okay for me to come? And Brutus and Cassius are going to say, yes, it's okay for Antony to come and speak to us. We're not going to do anything to him. Okay, so I'll play that part really quick and then I'll discuss what Antony is going to say to the men.
Soft, who comes here? A friend of Antony's.
Thus, Brutus, did my master bid me kneel. Thus did Mark Antony bid me fall down. And being prostrate, thus he bade me say, Brutus is noble, wise, valiant, and honest. Caesar was mighty, bold, royal, and loving. Say I love Brutus, and I honor him. Say I feared Caesar, honored him, and loved him. If Brutus will vouchsafe that Antony may safely come to him and be resolved how Caesar hath deserved to lie in death, Mark Antony shall not love Caesar dead so well as Brutus living, but will follow the fortunes and affairs of noble Brutus, thorough the hazards of this untrod state, with all true faith. So says my master Antony.
Thy master is a wise and valiant Roman. I never thought him worse. Tell him, so please him come unto this place, he shall be satisfied, and by my honour depart untouched.
I'll fetch him presently.
I know that we shall have him well to friend.
I wish we may, but yet have I a mind that fears him much, and my misgivings still fall shrewdly to the purpose.
Okay, so if we look at what Mark Antony's servant says here at the bottom of page 39, you notice that he speaks really, he almost like flatters Cassius and Brutus. He says here, Brutus is noble, wise, valiant, and honest. I think that's important that the servant says that because Mark Antony wants to make sure that Brutus knows that, hey, I want to come back and talk to you and I'm not mad, okay? And we see here that he says, say, I love Brutus and I honored him. Say, I feared Caesar, honored him, and loved him. So if you notice here, Mark Antony is staying pretty neutral. He doesn't know yet what's going on according to his servant, and he just wants to really come talk to Brutus and Cassius. So he says, if Brutus will vouchsafe, so if Brutus will say that Antony may safely come to him and be resolved, how Caesar hath deserved to lie in death, Mark Antony shall not love Caesar dead so well as Brutus living. So we see here that basically if Brutus will swear that Antony can come safely and be convinced that Caesar deserved to die, then he will love Brutus. Okay, so he's saying, hey, I want to come, explain to me why Caesar had to die so that I can understand. So essentially that's what the servant says. And so Brutus is like, yes, right here. Let's see. So this would be bottom of page 39. Brutus says, thy master is a wise and valiant Roman. I never thought him worse. Tell him so. Please come on to this place. He shall be satisfied, and by my honor depart untouched. So basically, tell him to come over here. We're not going to hurt him. It's all good. Now, notice when the servant exits, okay, the bottom of page 39, Cassius says, I have a mind that fears him much, and my misgivings still fall truly to the purpose. So Cassius still is afraid of Mark Antony in the sense of like he doesn't know what he's going to do. But Brutus is like, it's fine, have him come talk to us. Okay, so let's flip, we're bottom of page 39, top of page 40. Mark Antony is going to come. Now, I know, guys, at this point, we haven't really seen much of Mark Antony. I mean, we've only met him at the beginning of the play. We haven't really heard him speak. But we know that Mark Antony was close to Caesar. I mean, anytime Caesar asked him to do something, Caesar was like, Mark Antony, jump. Antony's like, how high? He always did whatever Caesar asked him to do. So we know that Mark Antony loved Caesar. So keep in mind that when Mark Antony first walks in, and he starts speaking. He's actually going to be talking to Caesar's body, sort of, okay? Brutus and Cassius are there, but when Mark Antony enters, he's so overwhelmed by seeing Caesar's body there that when he first starts talking, he's talking to Caesar, the dead Caesar, okay? And then after he gives his little speech to Caesar's body, you'll see that Brutus is going to then sort of interrupt him and speak to him. And they're going to discuss basically why they had to do what they did. And they're going to, I don't know how to say this, like make basically like an agreement. And pay attention to what Mark Antony does on the top of page 41. He's going to physically do something, and what he does might surprise you, okay? And when we're reading page 41, keep in mind that, halfway through his speech on page 41, he slips back into his weird thing where he starts talking to Caesar's body again. So whenever you see him say like, "Oh, Caesar," or "Caesar, oh, it's true," that's where he started talking to Caesar's body. So they're going to make an agreement, and I'll pause it. I'll pause it at the middle, like towards the bottom of page 41, just so we don't get too lost. So basically we'll read pages 40 and 41 now together. So you should be bottom of page 39 and then quickly flipping to the top of page 40.
But here comes Antony. Welcome, Mark Antony.
Oh, mighty Caesar, dost thou lie so low? Are all thy conquests, glories, triumphs, spoils shrunk to this little measure? Fare thee well. I know not, gentlemen, what you intend. Who else must be let blood? Who else is rank? If I myself, there is no hour so fit as Caesar's death's hour, nor no instrument of half that worth as those your swords made rich with the most noble blood of all this world. I do beseech ye, if you bear me hard, now whilst your purpled hands do reek and smoke fulfill your pleasure. Live 1,000 years, I shall not find myself so apt to die. No place will please me so, no mean of death, as here, by Caesar and by you, cut off the choice and master spirits of this age.
O Antony, beg not your death of us. Though now we must appear bloody and cruel as by our hands, and this our present act you see we do, yet see you but our hands, and this the bleeding business they have done. Our hearts you see not. They are pitiful. And pity to the general wrong of Rome, as fire drives out fire, so pity, hath done this deed on Caesar. For your part, to you our swords have leaden points, Mark Antony. Our arms in strength of malice, and our hearts of brother's temper, do receive you in with all kind love, good thoughts, and reverence.
Your voice shall be as strong as any man's in the disposing of new dignities.
Only be patient till we have appeased the multitude, beside themselves with fear. And then we will deliver you the cause why I, that did love Caesar when I struck him, have thus proceeded.
I doubt not of your wisdom. Let each man render me his bloody hand. First, Marcus Brutus will I shake with you. Next, Caius Cassius, do I take your hand. Now, Decius Brutus, yours. Now yours, Metellus. Yours, Cinna. And my valiant Casca, yours. Though last, not least in love, yours, good Trebonius. Gentlemen all, alas, what shall I say? My credit now stands on such slippery ground that one of two bad ways you must conceit me, either a coward or a flatterer. That I did love thee, Caesar, Oh, 'tis true. If then thy spirit look upon us now, shall it not grieve thee dearer than thy death to see thy Antony making his peace, shaking the bloody fingers of thy foes? Most noble in the presence of thy corse. Had I as many eyes as thou hast wounds, weeping as fast as they stream forth thy blood, it would become me better than to close in terms of friendship with thine enemies. Pardon me, Julius. Here wast thou bade, brave heart. Here didst thou fall, and here thy hunters stand, signed in thy spoil and crimsoned in thy leaf. Oh, world, thou wast the forest to this heart, and this indeed, O world, the heart of thee. How like a deer, stroken by many princes, dost thou here lie.
Okay, so let's analyze what Mark Antony is saying here. So if we go back to where Mark Antony first came in, I'll scroll back up here. As I told you guys, at first, Antony is talking to Caesar's body. So at the top of page 40, he says, "O mighty Caesar, dost thou lie so low?" So he talks directly to the body. And I think what is important here is that he's not sure, what's going on. And then he says to Brutus and Cassius, "I know not, gentlemen, what you intend. Who else must be let blood? Who else is rank? If I myself, there is no hour so fit as Caesar's death hour, nor no instrument of half that worth as those your swords made rich with the most noble blood of all this world. I do beseech you, if you bear me hard, now, whilst your purpled hands do reek in smoke, fulfill your pleasure, live 1,000 years. I shall not find myself so apt to die." So to quickly translate that for you guys, basically, okay, Antony is asking, like, who else must be let blood? So who else is going to die? And myself, there's no hour, there's no time so, like, awesome, so perfect than Caesar's death hour. So basically, he's saying, "I do beseech you," I'll highlight this again. "I do beseech you, if you bear me hard, now while your purpled hands do reek in smoke, fulfill your pleasures, live 1,000 years, I shall not find myself so apt to die." He basically is saying, like, right now, this time when Caesar's died, with the same hands that killed Caesar, that's the perfect time to die. So if you're going to kill me, you need to kill me now. Kill me at this perfect moment, because I would want to die with my friend Caesar. An extreme response, for sure, okay? But when we look here, Brutus says, and this is continuing on page 40, "O Antony, beg not your death of us, though now we must appear bloody and cruel as by our hands, and this present act you see we do, yet you see but our hands and this bleeding business they have done." So basically he's like, Antony, don't beg us to kill you. You're only seeing what we did. You're only seeing our bloody hands. You're only seeing what we've done. You're not seeing, right, our hearts. Our hearts, you see, they are pitiful and pity to the general wrong of Rome. So basically, Brutus is saying, like, you're not seeing our hearts. You don't know why we did this, right? Let me try to explain it to you. And he talks about the fact that they are receiving him with all kinds of love, good thoughts, and reverence. So this is really important because Brutus is trying to sort of comfort Antony and say to him, listen, Antony, like, what we did, we only did this because, we love Rome and we love its people, and we don't want you to think that we did this because of anything bad. We're not going to hurt you, and we're not going to hurt anybody else. So that's really what Brutus is trying to get across to Antony. All right. Let's go into basically the second part of Antony's speech. So you'll notice that Antony, at the top of page 41, he starts talking again. and he basically says that he wants to shake each man's hand. So if you look at the top of page 41, Antony says, I doubt not of your wisdom, let each man render me his bloody hand. And then he goes and shakes each man's hand. He shakes Brutus's hand, Cassius's hand, everybody's hands, okay? Cinna, everybody. And notice that he says to Casca, who was the first person to stab Caesar, my valiant Casca, yours. So he purposefully talks about Casca in that way because Casca was the first person to stab Caesar. Sorry, this little guy was begging for my attention. So if we go down here, you'll see towards the middle of his speech on page 41, Mark Antony starts talking to Caesar again. So I'm highlighting this part. He says, Caesar, oh, 'tis true. He starts talking about the fact that he's shaking the hands of all of the men that killed him, right? And he's talking to Caesar. And you notice that he kind of like apologizes to Caesar here. He says, pardon me, Julius. Here wast thou bade, brave heart, here didst thou fall, and here thy hunters stand, signed in thy spoil and crimson in thy leave. O world, thou wast the forest to this heart. So he's apologizing like, Caesar, yes, I shook their hands. They are the hunters. They killed you. And he continues with this metaphor where he says, how like a deer strucken by many princes dost thou here lie? So making that comparison to Caesar, basically saying like, you were the deer and they were the hunters and they struck you a bunch of times and now here you are dead. Okay, so the last part of this scene is that Mark Antony, Brutus, and Cassius need to kind of make an agreement. Well, second to last part of this scene. So I'm going to play the recording. In the next part, you're going to see that Antony, Cassius, and Brutus are going to basically discuss Caesar's funeral. Mark Antony is going to make a request and ask them for something that he can do. And I want you to see if they will grant his request. So here we go.
Mark Antony.
Pardon me, Caius Cassius. The enemies of Caesar shall say this. Then in a friend it is cold modesty.
I blame you not for praising Caesar so. But what compact mean you to have with us? Will you be pricked in number of our friends, or shall we on, and not depend on you?
Therefore I took your hands, but was indeed swayed from the point by looking down on Caesar. Friends am I with you all, and love you all, upon this hope, that you shall give me reasons why and wherein Caesar was dangerous.
Or else were this a savage spectacle? Our reasons are so full of good regard that were you, Antony, the son of Caesar, you should be satisfied.
That's all I seek. And am, moreover, suitor that I may produce his body to the marketplace, and in the pulpit, as becomes a friend, speak in the order of his funeral.
You shall, Mark Antony. Brutus, a word with you.
You know not what you do. Do not consent that Antony speak in his funeral. Know you how much the people may be moved by that which he will utter?
By your pardon, I will myself into the pulpit first and show the reason of our Caesar's death. What Antony shall speak, I will protest he speaks by leave and by permission, and that we are contented Caesar shall have all true rights and lawful ceremonies. It shall advantage more than do us wrong.
I know not what may fall. I like it not.
Mark Antony, here, take you Caesar's body. You shall not in your funeral speech blame us, but speak all good you can devise of Caesar. And say you do it by our permission, else shall you not have any hand at all about his funeral. And you shall speak in the same pulpit whereto I am going after my speech is ended.
Be it so. I do desire no more.
Prepare the body then, and follow us.
All right, guys, we got to talk about this agreement that they just made. So let's go back to, we left off at the bottom of page 41, okay, where Mark, basically Cassius sort of interrupts Mark Antony speaking. And so Antony says, pardon me, Caius Cassius, the enemies of Caesar shall say this, then in a friend it is cold modesty. So basically, cold modesty is like a cool assessment, or I don't know, like, sure, okay. And Cassius says, I blame you not for praising Caesar so, but what compact mean you to have with us? So basically, Cassius says, I'm not mad at you for praising Caesar, but like, what agreement do you have with us? What are you trying to accomplish here? That's at the bottom of page 41. So Antony then says, I took your hands, therefore I took your hands, bottom of page 41, top of page 42, but was indeed swayed from the point by looking down at Caesar. So I got distracted by looking at Caesar, but friends, I am with you all and love you all. So he's like, listen, I got distracted by seeing my dead friend there. I am with you. I love you. And then he says something really important. He says, upon this hope that you shall give me reasons why and wherein Caesar was dangerous. So he's basically asking Brutus and Cassius there, top of page 42, to tell him why it is that Caesar was dangerous and why it is that they needed to kill him. Of course, Brutus is like, yes, of course we're going to tell you, or else this were a savage spectacle, right? If we don't tell you, then this is just terrible. Our reasons are so full of good regard that were you Antony, the son of Caesar, you would be satisfied. So our reasons were so good that if you were Caesar's son, you would be okay with them. Antony says, that's all I seek, but he asks them something, okay? I may produce his body in the marketplace and in the pulpit as becomes a friend to speak in the order of his funeral. This is at the top of page 42. Mark Antony wants to take Caesar's body into the pulpit, basically into like the courtyard. There's like a place where people give speeches to the public, and he wants to speak to the people at Caesar's funeral. Notice Brutus says, you shall, Mark Antony. So Brutus immediately agrees. But Cassius has a problem with it, right? Brutus, a word with you. He says, you do not know what you do. Do not consent that Antony speak in his funeral. Know you how much the people may be moved